you can embrace that no one is spectacular and everyone starts average, that means we can all grow. We can all do a little bit better the next time, a little bit better. So rather than being fearful of failing, just know that, well, I may not go all the way the first thing I learn, but I'll go a little bit farther than I did the first time I tried it.
A podcast hosted by Joe Dietrich, Joe on the Mic, Leader Talk, tackles various leadership strategies that cover self-development, self-leadership, including spiritual and physical health of leaders. This podcast will feature guests ranging from military leaders, thought leaders, health and nutrition leaders, spiritual leaders, nonprofit leaders, and many more. Guys, welcome again to our next episode. And I'm so happy to have Jeremy Nix on board. And we're just going to be jamming on basically some soft skills that leaders need to have. And you know what? The term soft skills, to me, it makes it seem like it's not important. But you know what? Soft skills are, to me, vital. And I believe Jeremy believes the same way. But let me introduce Jeremy real quick. Jeremy is a husband to his best friend of 19 years and a dad to 2 teenage sons. His wife and Jeremy have built a successful health business, generating 7 figures annually in just 4 years. That is super awesome. Jeremy is a former hostage and crisis negotiator, which is pretty cool. Just reading that is just like, that's cool. And uses his experience in negotiations and business to help other entrepreneurs bridge the gap between them and their next clients through heroic influence and authentic connection. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Joe, I'm glad to be here. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to talk to you, and yeah, let's talk about all skills. I love it.
Yes. You know, and our topic was going to be about people recognizing that their current abilities do not decide their future.
Yeah. And
can you drop a little something about what does that mean to you for our audience?
Yeah. So for me, I wish that was my saying, but it was actually something that was said to me after I failed miserably. So you mentioned that I am a former full-time hostage and crisis negotiator. I still actually get to be a consultant and work alongside the team that I was on back when I was doing that for a living. And the first time I ever negotiated, it was actually during an interview. It was not real. It was how you interviewed for the team. You had to go in and do a scenario-based interview where you negotiated with 2 different types of people. And the first one I negotiated with was a man on a bridge. And I thought I did so well, Joe. I was pumped because I'm a great talker. And I came in, there's this guy sitting on this mock-up bridge, and I had the conversation with him. He wouldn't talk to me. I continued to talk to him. He wouldn't talk back to me. No matter, like, just go away. That's the only thing he would say to me. Go away. And I kept saying, no, I'm not going to go away. And I used all the things that I thought were important to get someone to do what you want them to do. And I said everything I knew to say. I brought energy. I brought all of it. And then I went on with the interview, and I walked out of that interview after doing the 2 scenarios plus all the questions that they would ask. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of questions when you decide you want to be a negotiator.
Yeah.
And I walked out of that interview after an hour-long interview, and I was so proud. I was pumped. I thought, man, I crushed that interview. And so 3 days later, when I hadn't heard anything, I went to my supervisor and who had recommended me for the job. And I said, hey, Laura, I haven't heard anything back. I'm just wondering, when do I get started? That's how confident I was, by the way. When do I get started? And she looked at me and said, do you want to know the truth? And you and I both know that if someone has to ask you if you want to know the truth, you probably inside your ego does not want to know the truth. And so,
yes.
so I said, yeah, go ahead and tell me. And she said, well, the man you did that bridge scenario with, he's actually been a negotiator for 20 years. So the guy that was on the bridge that I was negotiating with, he was actually a negotiator, and he had been one for 20 years. He made the statement of me. She said, he made the statement of you when you left. He said, if that man had showed up and I was actually in crisis and I was standing on the side of a bridge, I would have jumped. And I was devastated.
Mm.
I mean, imagine I went from going, I'm such a great talker to I am the worst person in the world. I make normal people want to jump off bridges. And I just didn't know what to say. I put my head down. And then she said, "Oh, but just so you know, they actually want to give you a shot. They see potential in you." And I said, "What in the world? How is that even possible?" And I was embarrassed. I said, "Oh, Laura, that's kind. I know you went to bat for me. I don't I don't need this. It's okay. I don't need it." And she said, "No, no, no, no. Listen to me." She goes, they see potential and they want you to be on the team. I said, "How is that even possible?" And she looked at me in that moment, is exactly what she said to me. She said, "Jeremy, if you're willing to learn and grow, you'll make an amazing negotiator." She said,
Mm.
you have some of the innate skills, but you need to learn some of the stuff that you don't have. And if you're willing to learn and grow, then I know because your future potential is not limited by your current abilities. You can grow. And that just stuck with me. And so for 3 years after that, I was on the team right away. But I mean, I trained hard and did everything I could to grow in those things I didn't know. And 3 years later, I ended up on a bridge with a real man in a real crisis who really wouldn't talk to us. Same thing. And after 8 hours, um, the outcome was different. And it was amazing. So now I live by that motto. I know that it doesn't matter where I start, that does not affect where I can go. So
Wow. Wow. Guys, I hope you just heard that nugget that Jeremy just dropped. And I wrote it down. I'm like, and it's so true. We hear that a lot in leadership coaching, seminars, and things of that nature. That, and especially because I'm a very diehard fan of John Maxwell, and he said that leaders are always willing to learn. If you think you've learned it all, you've missed the point. There's no such thing as knowing it all. There's always the next level of learning. And um, you said the key word: be willing to learn and grow. And what? How can our audience? Because I know there's some people out there. I was one of them at one point in time. I was I was scared to learn. I know that might be like a weird term for some people, but I was fearful to learn because I was going to make a mistake, or I thought I was. What would you tell somebody like, hey, look, be willing to learn and grow, but you know what? Don't be scared, or don't have fear about it.
yeah, I interesting that you were fearful to learn. I was actually fearful to grow. And
Mm.
and because growing is always painful because it always provides tension. What I would say to either of us, if you and I were sitting across the table from me right now and you're like, I don't want to learn new things, and I'm like, and my former self is on the other side of the table saying, I'm really scared to grow. That's going to be painful because I know that means there's going to be a lot of hard things that I have to do. I would say to you, Joe, and anyone who's like, I'm scared of what I would have to learn. I'm scared of what if I can't learn at all? Because I think I would probably ask the question, what are you most scared of? Is it the fear of failing in your learning that you don't have the ability to learn? I would get curious to know what about learning scares you. That's number one. Because everyone's got different things. But then I would encourage you that learning is a lifelong process anyways. And there's a great book by a guy named Harris. And he wrote this book called The Wonder Switch. And the Wonder Switch is all based on the idea that all of us are born as kids full of wonder. And Harris happens to be a stage magician. And he said, everyone is born as kids full of wonder. And then something happens and that switch gets turned off. And we go from being wowed by things to always trying to figure out how things are. And so through the process, he talks to you about how can you reactivate that wonder switch in your life. And one of the things he says that I think is so good, and this is what I would say to you if you're scared to learn, I would say embrace average. And that seems so weird. He says embrace average because if you realize that nobody was born spectacular, nobody was. We were all born average. The only thing, and this is me, this is not out of the book because I wouldn't want to get him to get blamed for this. The only thing that we're really good at doing when we're born is eating, pooping, and sleeping. And then we're pretty good at crying. We bring that one in, right? So that's the only thing we're good at doing. Everything else, even though some of us do it at a more accelerated rate than others, everything else in life is learned. Everything else in life is learned. And so you can embrace that no one is spectacular and everyone starts average. That means we can all grow. We can all do a little bit better the next time, a little bit better. So rather than being fearful of failing, just know that, well, I may not go all the way the first thing I learn, but I'll go a little bit farther than I did the first time I tried it, and a little bit farther. I didn't become a great negotiator overnight. I told you it took me 3 years to have the confidence. I was in multiple negotiations. I had been on the scene of people who had taken people hostage. I'd been on the scene of people who had barricaded themselves in houses, people on rooftops. But it took me 3 years to get to the place that I was comfortable standing on a bridge with a guy like that. But at the same time, I was still learning and growing along the way. And so I would say embrace average and know that 1% and 2% growth points are really powerful over the length of your lifetime.
Wow. That's good stuff. That is good stuff. And you hit upon a good idea right there, because we have to figure out, well, first of all, I like the point that you made that, you know what, we were all born the same. But out of that, we had a wonder switch. You know, we're all the same, but then all of a sudden we have to start growing. We have to start progressing. There's a genuine need, I think, in all of us at some level to go to the next level, because you know what, we weren't born walking, right?
Right.
So we had to figure out how to walk. We had to figure out how to get up, and it's innately in us. There's a need to grow, but then all of a sudden in life we encounter something, whatever it is, a failure, or maybe a bully, or maybe somebody who says you're not good enough, or what you did was a failure. And then all of a sudden that negativity comes in, and we start to stagnate. And I like that idea. We have to get that wonder back.
Yeah.
The sense of awe of things, to learn, to grow, to expand ourselves. And you said something a while back in one of your videos, and I think this is a good transition point. All right, folks, time for a sponsor break. Hey guys, real quick, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain real quick. It's free. Did you hear what I said? It's free to make your podcast. They have creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast. They also have free music that you can use. Not to mention, they will distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for you. All right. And you can also make money from the podcast with minimum listenership. Okay. They have everything that you need. Look, download the app, Anchor, like the anchor on a boat. And the website is anchor.fm. Anchor.fm. Get it. What are you waiting for? Start your podcast now. Do it. Anchor.fm, or download it on the app. Talk to you later, guys. Hey, everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, send me a DM if you like this episode, and share it with your friends. Again, share it with your friends. This is good leadership stuff that everybody needs to know. Visit my website at joedetrie.com, joedetrie.com, to learn more about me. And if you want a free coaching call, hey, go to my website, sign up for a complimentary coaching call. I'd love to sit down with you and help you figure out how to make 2021 the best year ever. Talk to you later, guys. All right, back to our episode. You said if you're not growing, you're going back or regressing. Can you drop something on us about that?
Well, I mean, if you look at life, everything in life is either growing or dying. So there really is, in our health and wellness business, we tell people a lot of times, because most people start health and wellness. They start with the idea, I just want to lose some weight, right? That's most people, when you ask them about health, they go, I just want to lose some weight. Weight loss is not is not health gain. So a lot of times with our clients, they'll hit this number on a scale, this magic number that someone along the way has decided that's the number I should be. And they hit this number on the scale and they go, okay, I'm good now. I'll just maintain. And one of the
Mm,
first things we tell them is if you just try and maintain that number, you actually will not be able to maintain that number, because that number is not an indicator of your actual health. And so if we stop trying to grow in our health, then what does happen is that number on the scale starts growing. And so you're never maintaining. You're never in anything in life, you're not maintaining. You're always either growing or going backwards. So when a person, for us, when a person loses some weight and they go, okay, I'm done, but they haven't added to their health in other ways through activity or stress management, or even one of the things we teach is financial health. If you're not growing in spiritual health, if you're not growing in all of these areas, then eventually the first thing you tried to fix, it will actually become broken again, because you have to
mm,
constantly be growing. Everything in life is, look around. There's nothing that's not, it's either growing or it's dying. There's no such thing as maintaining. It doesn't, nothing maintains. And
mm,
so, and so that's, I mean, that's literally, that's, I am not a scientist, but I know that's a law somewhere of nature. So,
mm.
so that's what I mean by that when I say you're there's no such thing as maintenance. We don't do maintenance. We either grow or we break down.
So let's say, and I try to talk to my clients as well, people that I speak to, about growth and about, like, if they want to start a new project or a business,
Mhm.
because people want to grow. I genuinely, truly believe people want to grow, but again, they have fears, there's doubts, uh, mindset issues that are saying, oh, they can't do it, or they're doing comparison.
Mm.
And this goes back to your current abilities do not decide your future. Why why is it important to avoid comparing yourself to someone else, in your opinion?
Oh, well, it's funny because I just talked about this word recently and it's not a good word, but I'm going to use
Yeah.
it now. Um, One of the things I believe that makes comparison so dangerous is that you don't know another person's why. So when you see somebody running at a speed that seems to be faster than you don't understand what's going on internally in them that's causing that explosive run.
Mm,
You don't know. I don't know your story, Joe. I know my story. And so when I start focusing on what you appear to be accomplishing externally without understanding the depths of what's going on internally, then I will only see the results, not the drive. And so therefore I can't, it's comparing apples to oranges. I don't know your story. Your story is different than my story. I don't know your why. I don't know why. And maybe the very thing that's causing you to run in what I perceive as way farther ahead of me actually isn't even healthy for you. It's driven by something that's extremely unhealthy. And so it's not really a good thing that you're running the way you're running. But all I see is that you're what I believe is ahead of me in the race, when actually maybe you're not. Maybe you're not ahead of me in the race. And so the number one thing that I think is we have to do when we start to compare is we have to go, hold on, everybody has a different why. Everybody's driven by a different thing. And we talk about the growth of my wife and my business. What I don't always say is that part of the reason our business grew as fast as it did is because we did have a major why. My wife walked away from what was already paying the bills, and overnight we went from having a very high six-figure income to considering working at Starbucks because we had a dream about what we could do. So of course we ran at a really, really fast pace for our business. Not everybody has that same why, so they're not all, it doesn't make them less successful than us. It
mhm,
just means they're running a completely different race. And so that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is that the danger in comparison is it doesn't just steal your joy. A lot of people are like, oh, comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of a lot of things. A comparison is the thief of gratitude. When I
mm,
compare myself to somebody else, I immediately begin to become ungrateful for what has happened in my own life. And when I lose gratitude, then I begin to lose my future, because I believe that gratitude is a major, major component of a strong future. Is being grateful for where I've been, grateful for where I am, allows me to dream for where I want to go. And so comparison steals gratitude. Comparison steals your future. Comparison steals a whole lot more. And then all of that is the culmination of that is that comparison then steals your joy, because it's still stolen all the things that do bring joy. And so that's what I believe is the dangers of comparison. And I also believe one of the things we have to that we remind ourselves again, I don't know Joe's why. So Joe seems to be extremely, man, he's doing it so much better than me and so much faster than me. But I don't know why that is. And I mean, what's going on inside of Joe, what's driving him? Because that is usually one of the biggest differences between people and where they're at is what's driving the inside of them. Does that make sense?
Oh man, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, because and I like to add on to that too, because yes, first of all, we don't know that person's why, what's driving them to do what they do, because they could have gone through, like you said, a significant pain, a loss in income. So now their drive is like, look, we need to get food on the table. We need to pay the bills, because we were living at a certain lifestyle, and we need to maintain that, because if we don't, we're going to lose everything that we have. So that there's definitely a huge why there. Or someone's why could be, look, I need to lose weight, talking about health, because my health is not good. My doctor said if I don't lose weight and get in better health, I might have a heart attack and die. And my kids still need me to support them. That's a huge why.
Yes.
So doing comparison, yeah, that can drive us batty if we if we're constantly comparing ourselves.
Right.
But there's also another component that I think you'll agree with too, is that if you're starting out in business or you're starting out at a new job, you see somebody who's got a promotion, they might be smarter. You might be smarter than they are in your mind, or in your business, you just started out selling X widgets. Your first weekend, you're not getting too many sales, and you're comparing yourself to someone who's been in the business for 10 years.
Yeah.
They've been at that workplace they have longevity, whatever, and that are a higher position, or the guy that's on the other side of the town selling the same widgets as you is bringing in, 6-figure income, and you're like, man, I can't even break 4 figures. Well, he's been in business longer than you.
Right.
Give yourself a break. He or she's been in business longer than you, or he or she's been at that position longer than you. Give yourself a break. And it goes back to your current abilities.
Yep.
Do not decide your future, because you know what? We can do one thing that's a comparison. It's like, well, what are they doing that is successful that I'm not doing? That is a healthy way to look at comparison, but not to say, oh, I'll never make it, or
Right.
and because we as coaches, we as business people, we understand that concept. Like Tony Robbins always says, or I think Jim Rohn actually said it first, that success leaves clues. So that there is a good comparison, but we have to make sure that we have a healthy mindset in that.
Yeah.
And that's what I call in my coaching proper positive evaluations. Because if we don't do proper positive evaluations about certain things, we can go down a negative road of comparison that is very destructive. Like you said, we start going out and not having gratitude for what we do have and what we can do, which helps. What I would like to go into, because I truly believe in this other concept that I'm going to ask you about. Staying on that vein of your current abilities don't dictate your future. Basically, when we run into an issue or run into a problem, the question of saying why versus what. And you talked about that in one of your videos, and I love the way that you were talking about it, because that is a very important question. But can you drop a little something about that? Why versus what?
Yeah, we love the word why. It's kind of a, I think in business, I think, especially with entrepreneurs, like find your why. Simon Sinek wrote the book, Find Your Why. He followed it up, started with wrote the book. Uh, Help me out right now, Joe. Why can I not remember the book? Right. Simon Sinek is Start With Why. He wrote
Start
the
with
book,
what?
Start With Why. And then he wrote a follow-up book to that called Find Your Why. And so why is such a big thing when we talk in business a lot of times, like if your why doesn't make you cry. And so we get hung up on this word why. Here's what most people don't realize about the word why. It's actually very hard for a person to articulate why.
Mm.
Why is a word that activates the non-creative side of the brain. Also, why is very judgmental. So think about, if you have kids, think about like when do we most often do we ask the word, well, why did you do that? Or why
Yeah.
did you do that? That's what happens with why. It comes across, it's kind of judgmental. Um, and so even like as I'm coaching clients in coaching people in business, if I were to ask the question, well, why didn't you, I gave you those steps, why didn't you take those steps? We had this great
Mm.
conversation. Why didn't you take those? It's judgmental. I'm already on the defense. I'm already on the,
Yeah.
and we do that to ourselves as well. So when we talk about our current abilities do not impact our future possibility and what's potentially available to us. A lot of times like, well, why can't I? Why can't I? And it's like, I don't know. I just can't. It's very difficult to understand I'm just not good enough. See how it becomes judgmental? I can't,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good enough. Instead, we need to start using the word what. We need to start using the word what. And the reason that what is so powerful is it does activate that imagination. It does allow you can articulate what. So what, instead of saying, why can't I could ask the question, what could I do to improve a little bit in this area? Right away, when you hear it, immediately there's a softening that goes, oh, okay, there's something I could do here. What
Mm-hmm.
could I do differently next time? What is missing that if it were there, I would see more success? There's so many things you could say with what, and so many questions you can ask yourself with what that allow you to go look for options. It opens up the door to options. What gives you options? And so I am constantly encouraging, and that's questions that we ask ourselves. I am constantly encouraging the people that I work with to use the word what rather than why. I had an amazing conversation on my podcast with Judge Rosemary Aquilina recently. And she's well known for being the judge who she presided over the Larry Nassar case, which I don't know if you remember that case. He was the doctor to all the USA gymnastics girls, and he's now serving hundreds of years in prison for.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that
Yes.
story.
So Judge Aquilina she allowed for 150 victims to address him in court. And so she became really well known for that. But she's got a lot of great things that she does. And she said something in our talk that has stuck with me. And I've just been like, I'm gonna say this all the time. And she said this. She said, what would you like me to know that I don't know? And how can I help you with that? And because of that simple question, what would you like me to know that I don't know? And how can I help you with that? I guess it's two questions. Because of those two questions, she has become known as the judge who defendants truly come back to her later, even after they've been sentenced to years and years in prison. They come back to her after the fact and tell her, like with letters, and one person sent her artwork because she saw potential in them. She was willing to understand them, and it changed their life, and it helped rehabilitate them. Because she didn't say, well, why did you do that? She said, what would you like me to know about you that I don't know? And this is after their sentencing. She would always call them back and she would just talk to them individually, which is so powerful. There's just power in the word what. And I could go on about that forever, but I won't. So I'll give it back to you. So what are your thoughts about that?
Wow. No, that is so amazing, because It's so true, because when we use the word what, because we learn in coaching, and in leaders should know too, questions, proper questions, open-ended questions actually give better results. The why, yeah, I totally agree. The why is a connotation of almost negativity, depending on how you say it. But we tend to go there as a negativity. But yes, what can we do to fix this? What can we do to remedy? How can I, even is a good question. How can I do this, or how can I do that? And I remember this, and I'll just give a quick example of the question, what? And this was when I was in the military, and I was helping some folks redeploy from overseas, coming back from Afghanistan. And I was trying to process them for some training and stuff like that. And with everything, there's funding issues, right? So I was putting together travel itineraries and things like that, and paying for these soldiers to come back to go to their place they're supposed to redeploy from, and pay for their funding and training to reacclimate back into the civilian world. Well, I made a mistake of putting the wrong funding codes, and people that understand funding codes, they understand that you got to properly allocate funding for certain things, and in the funding world, like you can't fund training when there's funding for supplies. So just a simple example. Anyway, I used the wrong funding.
Okay.
So I got a call from our higher headquarters, very upset that I was using the wrong funding and potentially could get in trouble. And going back to the why versus what, and my response back to the individual that was calling, he was fired up. And all I said was, well, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to fix this?
Yep.
And he went from being very upset to a calm voice. And he's like, oh, well, you know what? And then he just started thinking and processing. And it's so very true that the what can I do, or what can we do, diffuses a lot of stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And starts creating an atmosphere of, well, how can we fix this? Let's fix this. And by me saying that to him, I allowed him to see that, look, I'm willing to fix this. Even though I'm at fault, in my ignorance, I did something that I shouldn't have done. I was willing to fix it. I took responsibility for my situation. So, in saying that, yeah, the why versus what makes a big difference. Because when I heard you talk about that on that video, I was like, man, that is spot on. And I wanted to make sure that our audience got that difference. And this is leader talk, and I always want to make sure to go back to, this podcast is about leadership. It's about helping leaders equip themselves to be better leaders. Resources like Jeremy, and he's gonna share with us real soon how to get in contact with him, his latest project that everybody can take part of. And this whole thing is about proper communication.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that leaders can be the best leaders when they can actually lead themselves, self leadership. If we can self lead ourselves, then when the people that come underneath us will benefit from our self leadership, because like John Maxwell likes to say, he says a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yep.
And if our leadership level is continually rising because we're learning, we're growing, we're not staying in our current abilities of stagnation, but deciding to grow, we can help people grow around us as well. But I thank you, Jeremy, so much. And before we head out, we talked earlier about you have a project. Can you share with our audience your project and how they can get in contact with you to learn more about you and your coaching?
Absolutely. First, I'm so grateful, Joe, that you let me be a part. I hope this added value to your listeners, and I hope that they were challenged about where they currently are at, and know that that's not a final destination. It's just a part of the journey, and that we're always going to continue to, we're always growing, and you can always continue to grow. And yeah, and just to get curious and to change your questions. There's an amazing, change your questions, you change your life. And so with that, one of the things that I have been doing in my business that I really believe has made the difference was I started to apply in my business the very things I was learning as a negotiator. So what I was learning about curiosity, what I was learning about rapport building, really learning about how do you connect with anybody, because the last thing a person who's held up in a house wants to see is a cop. But at the end of the day, negotiators are cops. And if I could learn the skills to have a person choose to walk out of their own free will, because they literally do. We don't, negotiators, we're not Denzel Washington. We never step inside the bank. That doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be, by the way, I really wanted to be, but if I could learn the skills that helps somebody choose to step out on their own free will and walk out to somebody who they initially would never want to spend time with as a cop. But if I could learn that in that world, why couldn't we apply those skills in the business world to help grow our businesses, to connect with people at any place, at any time, and then help them to want to choose our service to get them where they want to go? And so I've been doing this in my business for years. And recently I've been asked, why don't you teach other people this outside of your industry, outside of your network? And so we've launched the Bridge Builder Academy, which is 6 weeks to bridging the gap between where you are and where your next clients are. And we're helping people with the soft skills. There's tons of tools out there. There's tons of how to set up this widget and this and that widget, and what do I need to do with how do I handle social media, how do I handle marketing and advertising and all the widgets. There's not a lot of, well, John Maxwell, you've talked about him a couple of times, and I love John Maxwell. He's my mentor, and he says everyone's communicating but very few are connecting, and that's because connection takes soft skills. So the Bridge Builder Academy is a 6-week program to help you develop the soft skills so that you can do what I have done in my negotiating world, but it's bridge the gap between where your future clients are and where you are today. And so if you want to find out about that, you can just go to jeremynix.com. You can connect with me right there, and we'll talk about it. I keep it very limited. The group is very small, and that's intentional. And so we'll talk about it if it's a fit for you. And if there's still space, we will put you in it.
Awesome, guys. Look, when we were about to come on together, and the soft skills is all about communication. And I remember, I don't know if you remember that movie back in the day. It was Cool Hand Luke, and
yeah, I did.
The whole with Steve McQueen, and he says the jailer. I can't remember the guy's name, but he looks at Steve McQueen as he was disciplining him, and he just couldn't get through to Steve McQueen. And he just says, well, what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Yep.
And leaders, I think that the biggest thing that leaders have when there's maybe a team not doing what they're supposed to be doing, an employee that's not being productive or something, 9 times out of 10 that I've seen in my career, and I'm pretty sure you've seen it too, that there's a failure of communication.
Absolutely.
Failure between the leader communicating to the subordinate, or even the employee communicating with their middle management person that, hey man, there's a situation here and I just need help to overcome whatever it is that's going on. And I've seen that so many times. That's why I like that you're on our show. I like that you're doing that bridging the gap between you and your clients, because it's a communication thing. Yeah. Building the soft skills, and we all need it. I need that more and more every day. And
me too.
I think men learn that more about communication skills when we get married.
Absolutely.
Because we have to communicate with somebody all the time. And so I thank you for coming on, Jeremy. I thank you for sharing with our audience, and definitely you definitely brought a lot of added value. So I tell you guys, look, check out his website, jeremynix.com. Check out what he's doing, and if you're needing some soft skills improvement or wanting some soft skills improvement, I highly recommend you attend his academy, get involved, and find out that, look, you can go to the next level in communication skills. I mean, what better than a hostage negotiator? Can you? That's like best training right there, you know. But any last words, Jeremy, before we go?
No, I would just again remember, whether you think you're at the top or you feel like you're at the bottom, you can always grow. And so don't ever stop growing. Don't ever stop looking for opportunities to learn. And I want to come back to the last thing, Joe, that you said. Well, start out being fearful to learn. And I would say, whenever you feel that fear and you're growing, you're in a good place, because it means you're about to experience something new. So go keep experiencing new.
Wow. There we go. Hey, that's the best way to drop it right there. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe to our podcast, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you, guys.